Backstory: my boyfriend's grandpa passed away 4 days ago. When he passed, we met all of his family at a small ER to say our goodbyes. The ER made everyone wear masks due to a sickness going around the hospital. So 2 days ago I started to feel really bad body aches, sore throat, etc. Keep in mind I'm 18 weeks pregnant. I told him how I felt and he basically said he doesn't want to get sick because his grandpa's funeral is coming up. I told him I was feeling weak as well as hungry and didn't want to drive myself home then be hungry once I got there. I asked him if he was okay with helping me for the night and I'll leave in the morning. Basically just bring me some food to the room so I wouldn't contaminate any other areas of the house. He told me he had a lot on his mind and wasn't in the right headspace to help me. So I told him I understand and left. When I got home I made something small to eat then went to sleep. Yesterday morning he calls and checks on me. I tell him how I feel more sick than when I left. He just says okay. The rest of the day he has family over until about 3 a.m. just offering their condolences and keeping his family company. Around 4 p.m. I called and asked him for help to see if he could bring me something to eat because all I had the strength to get myself were just snacks like chips, cereal. No real meals, and I wanted to make sure I had enough in me for the baby. He basically brushed me off saying he has no idea how he could help and said I was selfish for not thinking about him grieving and how he was stressed and had a million things on his mind. He also told me that I was being evil because I said he wasn't helping me at all. After that I just hung up. He called me at 3 a.m. when everyone left to sleep on the phone with me but hung up 20 minutes later, said he would call back but didn't. Now I don't want to speak to him at all. But don't want to cause him more stress when he's already sad about his grandpa. I want to know if I'm an R for not respecting his time for grieving. Also, would I be an R for not talking to him today? I know how it feels to lose your grandpa when you're so close with him. But at the same time I just asked for a little bit of help and don't feel like I was asking him for a lot. Most medications you can't take during pregnancy because they have bad side effects for the fetus. So I've just been waiting it out and he knows that as well. Update: it's been decided I am the R here and that is fine. But for the ones wondering about DoorDash and other options, I recently just paid my bills and I made groceries for his place since I would be there with him during this time. So unfortunately I cannot afford DoorDash at the moment, but that would have been my first option. I didn't bring any food with me because all of the groceries really have to be cooked besides snacks. Also I know he is grieving and would have never said anything, but if he was okay enough to do favors for others yesterday, he could have picked up some food and left it at my doorstep. Didn't even have to come inside. Also I have family and friends, but getting them to do things for me is a bit of a challenge and I learned a while ago to stop asking. It's really just been me and him caring for one another. But after reading some of your comments I understand how I came off as needy. Edit: I speak to my family every day, we are close in that way. I see them every week as well. No bad blood between us. My friends don't live close to me to where it's easy to just drop off food and go. My parents on the other hand do. But now that I'm an adult and since my other siblings have had children, my parents tend to them. I have 2 siblings who aren't in their kids' lives ATM due to their own faults, so my parents step in. When I ask for help where they have to physically do something since I was a kid, it was always I'm tired this or I do feel like going here that. But when they ask me they feel like I'm just supposed to do whatever it is they ask. So yeah, I never call on them first. I call on my boyfriend, we've been together 3 years. Comment 1. YTA. People get sick all the time. It's a normal experience that a normal adult should be able to handle on her own. It's crazy to me that you feel entitled to catering while your boyfriend is thinking about a funeral, receiving condolences, and grieving a grandparent. What have you done for your BF since he lost his grandfather? Did you make him meals, buy snacks, offer to help with flowers for the funeral? You owe him some extra care right now, not the other way around, 18 weeks pregnant or not. Comment 2. NTA. I doubt the other commenters saying YTA have actually been pregnant and sick at the same time. Not having enough food to eat in that situation can make you physically very weak. It would be another story if food delivery was an option for you, but based on your edit, it's not. You were not being needy or entitled. You needed him to help care for you and he refused. I understand he's going through a tough time, but you are literally carrying his child. All you asked for was some food, which would not take a lot of his time or attention. You and the baby need to be his first priority from now on, and it's concerning that this doesn't seem to be the case. My parents started fostering when I, 19F, was 6. My younger brother was 3 at the time. I never had a problem with it. It was normal and I got along with a lot of the foster siblings who came to live with us. This then changed with Amy. I met Amy in 2nd grade. She was new to my class and we just did not get along. I remember other kids saying she was mad at me and I had no idea why. We only knew each other for a few days at that point. I remember thinking if she was mad at me for nothing then I was mad at her. We clashed a lot. Then in 3rd grade she started bullying me. She'd throw my lunch on the floor and step on it, she'd make up lies about me farting to get other kids to make fun of me. She told the teacher she wouldn't sit/work with freaky eye. I have a scar across my left eye. She'd also say I was evil like Scar from The Lion King. The scar gave her plenty of ammunition and eventually I became very self-conscious of this. My parents knew about the bullying and they were called in to speak to teachers and the principal over the bullying. Turns out Amy was a foster kid. Guess who decided to take her in? My parents. We were 10. My parents decided to adopt her. My parents were asked how I felt about it by a lot of people. They lied and said I was good with it and I was excited to help Amy and get along with her better. It was a lie. I screamed the house down when I found out and begged my parents not to. My brother didn't like Amy either. She had used him against me so many times at school and he knew about it. My parents blamed me for my brother and Amy not getting closer. When I was 15 we had this really big fight. My parents told me Amy was as much my sibling as my brother was and they weren't happy that I didn't acknowledge her as such. I told them I never would. That they could adopt her 100 times and I still wouldn't call her my sister. I told them they chose helping her over protecting me. I told them I wish she had stayed in foster care forever and that nobody had ever loved her, because she was a bully and I was tired of being her target. I told them she had won though. She had them and I would never see them the same way again. A year later Amy and I got into a fight and I was allowed to go and live with my grandparents. My parents tried to keep in touch with me but I made no effort. And eventually I started telling people my parents had lied about me wanting them to foster and adopt Amy. People treat my parents differently as a result and they confronted me about this 3 weeks ago. They showed up at my grandparents and said we needed to talk. They mentioned me calling them liars and I said they were and they became liars the second they started fostering Amy. My parents told me I had such a selfish outlook of the situation. I told them they chose Amy. So I didn't owe them or her a selfless outlook. Comment 1. NTA This seems to be the evening for people to wonder if they are the Rs because their parents failed to protect them from step-siblings or other types of blended families that didn't work out well. Your parents did you a grave disservice when they chose to adopt Amy over your protests, and then lied about it to cover up the fact that you hadn't wanted her in your family because she bullied you. That just stinks. Your outlook on this isn't selfish, it's self-defense. The only thing you owe is to yourself, to make yourself a life you will enjoy and thrive in. I'm glad you got out of the situation as soon as you could. You don't owe your parents anything, including your own lies to make them look better for having lied themselves. Comment 2. NTA. Your parents are narcissists who prioritize the feel-good emotions and social currency they get from fostering over the feelings of their own children. I can't believe how damaging it must have been to have your tormentor taken into your safe space. What they did is unforgivable. They allowed you and your brother to be bullied in your own home and safe space. They also took a vulnerable foster kid into a home with a kid she, for whatever reason, had problems with which can't have been healthy for her either. It's shitty from every angle. You should check out the Raised by Narcissists sub. Comment 3. NTA, you're right, they prioritized Amy and they lied about your feelings on the matter. They probably saw her as someone who just needed love when they came to your school, but adoption is a very long process and they had years to figure out they were wrong. I, 32F, have been dealing with infertility for 7 years now. My husband and I are prepared for the fact we might never get to have a child together, but it's not easy. We're both currently in individual therapy to help us process all of this and find a way to be at peace regardless of what the future holds for us, but I truly hope we are lucky enough to have a child. My husband and I have baby names picked out. We never talk about them. But we have a little note on our baby name book with our boy and girl name pick. It's in our bedroom. We don't look at it much anymore, but it keeps us hoping, you know. My sister, 36F, has 5 daughters and 2 weeks ago she gave birth to her first son. My husband was working but I was at the hospital with my parents and my sister's eels waiting for the birth. Once he was born we were called in to meet my nephew and my sister told us they'd chosen the name Elio for him. She said the name was originally mine and my husband's top choice, but since we wouldn't be having any kids after all this time, she decided they should use it and not let the name go to waste being kept secret by me. It was then I remember seeing my sister at my room while she was pregnant a few months before. I thought nothing of it at the time but realized she'd been snooping. My parents asked how she could do that without talking to me first. My sister replied that it seemed a shame to waste a perfectly good name if I asked her not to use it. I couldn't handle it and I left. I didn't even say congrats or anything. I left and went home and I cried for a while. The very next day my sister called and asked me why I made it such a big deal. She also decided to drop that she was hurt I never discussed my baby names with her, gatekeeping them, even when I knew I wouldn't have a baby. I asked her how she could go out of her way to take the one name my husband and I had picked. She called me sensitive. I ended the call without another word. My parents checked in on me 2 days after. But since then my parents have said I should let it go and apologize for walking out. My sister also said I made her postpartum time and it was very selfish on my part. Comment 1, NTA. Keeping your preferences secret is not gatekeeping names. The names exist without you, and you don't owe anyone else your ideas. It sounds like she deliberately searched out your preferred name so she could use it to spite you, and rub it in that she can use it while you so far can't. What a malicious way to bring a child into the world. And now, of course, she makes your provoked reaction about how that hurts her. I don't know how you get past this, with her. Your sister sounds extremely toxic. Comment 2. I went into this thinking my vote would not be in your favor, because you can't really call dibs on names. But what your sister did was pretty shitty, snooping in your stuff, then using the name you like, and, most egregious, rubbing it in your face that you may not be able to have a baby of your own. Has she always been one to try and one-up you? Honestly, I think you should distance yourself from her for your own well-being because she seems pretty toxic. Comment 3. NTA. She openly said that she took the name you picked, proving that she snooped in your house. She then rubbed in the fact that you don't have children and acted like you are wrong to even hope. You are not being too sensitive here, your sister is being an R. BTW, I know someone who's expecting her first baby this month after several rounds of IVF. She's 44. You are still young, so your sister is wrong to assume all hope is lost. Last weekend, my sister asked if I could watch her 2 kids, 7 and 9, for the night because she and her husband had an event. I love my nieces and agreed, even though I live in a small 1-bedroom apartment. I thought it would be fun, and they usually behave well. Everything started fine. We watched movies, had snacks, and they seemed to be having a good time. But the next morning, when I went to make breakfast, things spiraled out of control. They were running wild, and by the time I realized it, they had knocked over a lamp, spilled juice on my rug, and somehow managed to break my TV remote. I tried to calm them down and get things under control, but they kept running around and even started playing with my work laptop, which I had to snatch away before they could do any damage. I was frustrated and overwhelmed. When my sister came to pick them up, I told her what happened and that I didn't feel comfortable having them sleep over again until they could be more careful. She laughed it off at first, saying, "Kids will be kids," but I stood my ground. I said I love them, but I need my apartment and belongings to stay in one piece. Now, she's upset and says I'm overreacting. She told our parents, and they think I'm being too harsh and that I should just kid-proof my place better next time. I'm feeling guilty because I know they're just kids, but I also feel like my boundaries weren't respected. Comment 1. NTA. 7 and 9 are too old to be running around like puppies with the zoomies and wrecking everything in sight just because you are busy making breakfast. I'm sure your sister is sad to lose her free overnight babysitter, but if she's a good parent, and I'm already guessing she's not, she can use this as a teaching moment for her kids. I suspect grandparents have had a similar experience and are just worried that they will be asked to host the next overnight. Comment 2. NTA. You're entitled to setting rules and boundaries for a space you've made for yourself. Being told to baby-proof your home when your nieces should have been taught to respect someone else's home is weird as hell. Sister needs to actually be a parent and take responsibility of her kids' actions.